Now, with the official election behind us, the provincial election that is, we're going to turn our attention to federal politics issues that, of course, include things that will be covered in the by-election, which is coming up soon, June 30th, as well as the approval of the Northern Pipeline, the gateway there. So I'm joined by federal NDP leader Tom Mulcair. Thank you so much for joining us
Melanie.
so early in the morning. And I know you're a morning guy.
I am.
You said you're up and at her at about 4 in the morning?
Yes, my staff always get their first emails and they always begin with a 4, yeah.
Oh, wow. That's got to be fun. Well, let's talk about the recent provincial election results, because I think it took a lot of people by surprise. So your initial reactions here?
Well, it was the NDP's best result in 24 years. So they obviously did a great job. And in a lot of the regions, whether it would be Sudbury or another one in Windsor, or getting back a place we were able to get Miss Pipe re-elected. We were doing well in areas outside of Toronto. Toronto itself was a challenge for us, no question.
Let's talk about that. There are some specific ridings. When we look at Trinity Spadina, that one being held by the NDP's Rosario Marchese for, what, 25 years. Yes. And surprising that decided to go red.
It was, and there was a full-bore attack on the NDP taken very early on by some of the other parties here in Toronto. A lot of threats about what the Hudak government would mean, and people simply said, well, we're going to vote differently this time around. I know Rosario, he's a great guy. I'm sorry to see that he's not there anymore. Even more sorry to see people like, coming in such a close-fit loss with people like Michael Prue, for example. Those were really tough losses for us. But we'll learn a lot from that for the next federal election. And, we'll wait and see what actually happens with the Wynne government. They've promised a lot. But I heard her say in the same breath this week that she was going to bring in exactly the same budget, and at the same time saying she was going to go after pensions. So we'll see what that actually means. How
does that work then with a cooperation as the official opposition on a federal level and dealing with a majority Liberal government? Can things get done?
We get along very well with all provincial governments. When I'm in Saskatchewan working with Brad Wall, we couldn't be more different in terms of our philosophy on a lot of things. But when I sit down with Brad Wall and we talk about issues together, it goes very well. And I have every intention of working on federal issues with Kathleen Wynne when the official opposition can be of help. You know, Toronto, look at the gridlock around this city. I mean, people lose on average 32 working days a year. That's a $6 billion a year loss for the economy. No ability to plan long term. Toronto is by far Canada's largest city, but also by far Canada's most important city. You wouldn't see the Japanese government completely abandon Tokyo or the Americans abandon New York. Toronto has a very specific place in our country's life. And the federal government under Stephen Harper has completely abandoned Toronto. We would change that. We'd get back to a national transit strategy, a national housing strategy that would in particular be able to help our largest city. With that strategy comes dollars? Yes. Yes. For example, we would transfer some of the existing gas tax. We would provide over the next 10 years $1 billion just for transit. So that would translate to about 1,500 hybrid buses, to give you a concrete example of what that would mean. We're also the only party working hard on a national vision for childcare. I heard you mention daycare before. I was part of the Quebec government in Quebec City when we put in the $7 a day daycare. I was in the National Assembly, and we worked hard on it. But you know what? It costs money, but it actually puts more back into the economy than what it costs. So that's the type of vision on a social level that we would bring to the game if we form a government in 2015. We've got a very short time left to chat, but I do want to ask you about the Northern Gateway Pipeline. Yes. You have been very vocal about your opposition to this and the conditional approval as of yesterday. Where do things stand right now, and what can you do moving forward? It's madness to think of bringing these huge super tankers into that narrow Douglas Channel. One spill there would cause irremediable damage to that pristine coastline. They've never thought about that properly. They're not even planning. They keep talking about a lot of conditions for the environment. None of them actually plans for a full spill up there. So I don't think that makes any sense. We've talked about moving from west to east. We think that does make sense. Cancel the Keystone Pipeline. You know, Joe Cressy, our candidate in Trinity Spadina, is against the Keystone Pipeline to the States because that exports Canadian jobs. Adam Vaughan, the Liberal candidate, is in favor of it. So we're going to bring that to the electorate in Trinity Spadina. Okay, well, we've got the by-election, of course, happening June 30th. The federal election happening next year. Yes. That could be an election issue, of course. Yes. So we will have to see how that goes. And we've got Olivia Chow about to be elected mayor, and for us, that's great news. We're all heading to the polls. All right, thank you very much for coming in. Appreciate your time. We're going to take a quick break here on Breakfast Television. We'll be right back in a couple of minutes.